All right. Hello, Jerome. How you doing today?
Great, Adanna. How are you?
I'm good. So, just really quick, I just want to let everyone know the first time I talked or met with Jerome, I was actually trying to raise capital for a multi-family, multi-million dollar project. And I think we talked for a couple hours about this project as well. And fast forward a year later, I listen to podcasts every day, all the time, driving to and from work. And so I was like, I heard this voice before. I was listening to a podcast and I was like, I heard this voice before. But I was more intrigued about the story, how you began and how you got started into multifamily. So I thought that this would be a great time to talk with you about raising capital, how you got started, and how you started your first deal, how you raised funding for your first deal. And I think that will be really, really beneficial for everyone. So just let's tell us about how you got started.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing to say is I'm not a syndicator. A lot of what I do is joint venture deals. And so I think that one of the most important things for people to understand or gather going into this is in order to take other people's money in, at least I believe, that you need to know what you're doing. And so we started doing joint ventures with people that we knew pretty well and were willing to place a bet on us. And that first deal was in Richmond, Virginia. It was a 23 unit. And we did everything from the roofs to the parking lot, landscaping, removing walls, added a half bath and a laundry room on the first floor, granite countertops, all kinds of stuff, right? And we took that property, average rents were at $695, and today we get $1195 on that property. And you asked how I got started. That's kind of the end of that first deal. I got started by dropping out of corporate America and going to knock on doors at 10 different banks and all of them telling me no and saying, hey, look, I got an MBA. I got a project management professional certification. I'm a professional engineer. I'll go get my contractor's license if you want me to. Like I just was running down the list of all the credentials that I thought made sense. And they said, but you don't have any experience. And I said, what do you mean? I just built a $20 million division for a Fortune 550 company. I was employee number 2, and I took that to 20 million in revenue in the first year, and we had $6 million in profit. I've got plenty of experience. He's like, yeah, you don't have any experience buying apartments. And so every deal that we do is bankable. We don't buy stuff in cash. We don't use creative financing or owner financing or any of that stuff. And so we like to have that other person looking over our shoulder. And so a lot of people will not think that the bank is their biggest partner, but they are your biggest partner, and they're going to be the most critical, and they're going to scrutinize you more than anything. And they're probably going to have more information about you than anybody else, at least from a financial perspective, right? They're going to pull your credit. They're going to know all the property that you own. They're going to see your different bank statements. And so they're going to really dig deep on you. And so what did experience actually mean? Experience means that you signed a loan and you own 20% of some deal of similar size. So what a lot of people are romanticizing in the education space right now is, hey, go do a 100-unit deal. And the fact of the matter is, if you've never run your own business, if you don't have substantial assets, that's not reality until you build a relationship with somebody who has, and they're willing to partner with you on a deal. Outside of that, this is a fraternity or sorority, and you're not going to get into the game. Some people finagle away, they buy a bad deal, do owner finance and overpay, do a bunch of other creative stuff. But if you're not in a great situation financially to handle it when you get hit in the mouth, because it's going to happen just by virtue of running a business, they end up bankrupt and losing the property. And nobody's telling that story, specifically to the folks in the minority communities. A lot of me, like my friends, myself in particular, like we were the first people to go off to college. So we weren't sitting around the dinner table talking about wealth building and how to decouple your time from money. Like my mom at 4 or 5 told me, go get a job. Like that's how you're going to pay for your life. It wasn't about a stream of income. And so I use that to frame this conversation so that we can have a really frank conversation about the things you want to ask about going forward.
Yeah, I think that's a very important information. A lot of times that we are either the first or second generation going to college, and in the generations before, you had Jim Crow. They were just trying to survive. So it's not a lot of conversations, like you said, at the dinner table, talking about apartment purchasing. And a lot of times it's, hey, just purchase your own home, get a job, stay there for 30 years, and so forth. So a lot of us are trying to get information from other people, and not from our families, which a lot of times our counterparts does have that opportunity to do that. But I think you have a great point on that. So let's talk specifically about how you got your deal together. You say friends and family. So can you be a lot more specific about that first deal?
I think the second deal is probably more representative than the first deal, but I'll talk about the first,
Okay.
right? And so
Okay.
I got turned away at the different banks, right? 10 different banks. So I went and started fixing and flipping houses because that was something I knew I could do. I'd been spending money or investing money with rehabbers. And so I was learning the business vicariously through my money being invested in their deals. And so I went, bought a few houses in Richmond and started executing against those. And I was sitting on the stoop on a $100,000 rehab that I was doing. And a guy put up, he's like, hey man, let me check out the finishes on your home. He said, we're getting ready to do one down the street. And I want to see what you're doing so I can make sure that we comp out the way that we're supposed to. And so we're walking through the house. And then he says, hey, do you know anything about that building in Church Hill? And I said, man, I tried to buy that 4 or 5 months ago. He's like, yeah, I'm getting ready to make an offer on it. I was like, please don't leave me out. I need experience. And you already have an apartment. So that would give me the experience I need. And he looked at me and said, well, what are you going to bring to the deal? I said, I don't know. We'll figure something out. He's like, well, how much money are you going to bring? I said, I don't know. We'll figure something out. And he went and made the offer anyway. He left me out the deal. And he went and talked to one of the guys that I've been investing with. It's like, hey, I need you to come into this deal as a general contractor. They didn't accept my offer. They didn't think I could pull the deal off. And he said, oh, that's the one Jerome was talking about 4 or 5 months ago. I'm only doing the deal if he does the deal. And that brought me back in. And so I was coming in for project management. He was going to be the GC on the deal. This guy was the experience and balance sheet partner. And then the broker who showed the other guy the deal came in. He put his commission back in. And then we had a property manager who managed about 3,500 doors at the time. He's up to over 4,000 right now, come into the deal. And so it was the 5 of us. We funded everything and we put it all together. And then, we executed that pretty heavy value add. That deal isn't the ideal situation, but because I didn't know anybody that had apartment experience to actually partner with, and I didn't spend time building a relationship, it was my way in. And the reason why I say that is you're getting married. Like when you do a business partnership, you're getting married, and you really need to know the person that you're partnering with. A lot of people think, hey, I'm just going to meet you at a conference. We're going to have a one-night stand, and then we're going to be in business for the next 5 or 6 years. Well, in this particular deal, we bought the property for 1.3 million, right? We put X hundreds of thousands of dollars in after we purchased it. And fortunately for me, the bank didn't give me the loan because the construction budget was off, and I would be bankrupt today because I didn't have enough cash in order to complete the rehab. And so we had to have a capital call to bring more money into the deal in order to finish it. And then we were able to refi and do the things that we needed to do. But the fact of the matter is, my balance sheet wasn't strong enough with something going wrong in order to survive that. And so that is why I'm really leery and caution people when they start talking about, hey, I'm gonna get creative, I'm gonna do owner finance and all this other stuff, and I don't have any money in the bank. These aren't flips, right? Unless you're taking it and selling it to somebody else. This is long-term ownership, and the banks are looking for you to have some money in reserves so that if something comes up like coronavirus, you can get through the tough spell and then get back on deck instead of having to give it back because you can't afford to pay your mortgage or whatever else.
So I want to talk to specifically because we are African Americans and we find deals all the time. Do you feel that there are certain challenges when it comes to talking to brokers? having to prove yourself that you're going to close on the property. Do you feel that that is has anything to do with being African American?
No. So
Okay.
it's all about your track record, right? If
Hmm.
you don't own anything and you're saying, hey, I own a single family home. Now I want to buy this $6 million building. Whether you're white, black, or purple, how?
Right.
Where there's but so many people who can actually come up with the financials to prove to the bank that they have net worth and liquidity in order to buy the property. And if you can't do it with the bank and you're buying it cash, where's the money coming from? Regardless,
Hmm.
how much wealth you have, like it's not about the skin color, it's about your capacity. And
Right, and I'm pretty sure those brokers want to sell to anybody as long as they get their cut. So they you have to prove to them at least that you can close, but they don't care who you are as long as you have the green.
all they care about is green. And
Right.
now, with that said, like you've got to build rapport. Like they're going to give you trash if they don't believe you can close. But if you're going to buy in my market, if you're going to buy in Greensboro, North Carolina, I probably saw that deal before you saw it, right? Because I buy here and I'll pay fair market for it. I'm not trying to beat people up on price. I'm willing to pay whatever is reasonable for that property based on their actuals. And so, but you've got to have a proven track record. And it's not just the brokers, it's the bank, it's everybody. And, this conversation is about raising money. Smart money wants experience, right? And, I always talk about the four things every investor is dealing with. The first thing is knowledge. We disrespect the multifamily operators so much by saying, hey, I watch videos and did podcasts, and because of that, I'm qualified to go run a business. Like I have knowledge now. That's not real, and you're delusional. I was delusional because I did it, right? The next thing that people are working through is deal flow, right? If you don't have the knowledge, you can't differentiate a lead from a deal. Same letters, but very different things. And so we absolutely need the knowledge so that you're buying something worth buying. And if you're using a bank, they won't let you run into a wall anyway. But you want to make sure that you actually know the difference and not just excited and trying to buy something because somebody put it in front of you. The next thing is experience. A lot of people will say, if you've got a great deal, the money will show up. This isn't single family homes where they're in first position and they just foreclose and sell it to somebody else. In this situation, you actually got to execute a business plan, and smart money is looking for experience so that they can execute against the deal. You can't fix overpaying, but paying the right price and not executing your business plan is a recipe for disaster as well, because you won't actually make the money you expect to make. And so capital is that last piece. A lot of people will say, I can't get started in multifamily because I don't have money. That's the last thing you need to be worried about. You need to be worried about knowledge, deal flow, and being surrounded by people with experience. Doing that, your money will show up. Skipping one of those steps will crush you.
Right. I agree. I've always heard that if you have a good deal, the money will find you a lot of times. If you have a really good deal, people would want to get in. Now, they may not have you as a lead, or they may not, but they will definitely contact you to partner up with you. I definitely agree on that.
Yeah, but they're just going to want to buy the deal from you, if anything.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, that's true. And hopefully, like you said, hopefully you can be in a situation where you can say, hey, can I get like a couple percentages, or can I, get a cut from it, or something like that. So because you at least brought the deal to them, but a lot of times if you don't have any legal documentation to bind it, sometimes you can lose it. Like you said, on your first deal, that you almost lost it because he, just decided to do it on his own, type of
So
thing.
I do have a question as well for Jerome. So Jerome, based on what you said, I love your assessment where you said it's not about the color. It's about what you bring to the table, and it's really about would you provide the deal, and will this deal be successful? That's kind of how I took what you said earlier.
Absolutely.
So with your first start, right? And you were saying, you can't go from you have a single home to give me the 6 million, 50 unit apartment complex. You can't do that. So what were some of the things that you did or provided? I know you said you were able to partner up with someone, and your thing was you said, hey, I'm gonna bring something to the deal. What were you say to someone who's trying to get that 50 unit to 100 unit apartment? But and in your case, like you said before, maybe they have a couple investment homes, but they're not necessarily have the portfolio probably needed to make a bank say, yeah, I need this deal. What would you say, and what advice would you give someone like
Yeah, and it's not a logical step. Like we want to microwave the success, and this is very much crockpot. Like there's very small group of people who are able to hit the ground and then just jump on a rocket ship. And so I'm telling people like buy something $500,000 to 1.5 million, execute that successfully. Refinance out your money. Now you got that asset, go buy something bigger, then go buy something bigger. Stop trying to skip from 3 doors to 70 or 100 or a single family home to 100. Like you need the experience operating so that you can actually execute the business plan. I mean, think about it. If I told you that, hey, I listen to podcasts, read books, and watch YouTube videos, and now I am going to go fight Conor McGregor, do you think I would win? Like, would you front the money for me to go into the ring? And I'm not getting any training with anybody. I just need you to send me $500,000 so that I can go fight Conor. I need to get there. I need to get, the hotel. I got to do all the press. I got to do all the stuff so to promote the fight. And then I'm gonna give you a piece of the winner's purse. It's all or nothing. I'm gonna give you a piece of the winner's purse. Would you invest with me?
I would say no, but
and I think, and so I've heard that the method that you're talking is the stacking method. I've heard before being used. So and that's little by little go and you gain experiences, getting more units under your hat and gaining that experience. So you're talking closer to like a stacking method.
Yeah.
To be able to start off
and go bigger. But my whole thing is this, right? The wealthy people, the ones who have the balance sheets that can go to the bank and get the loan, are only going to put that at risk with somebody who's got a proven track record, right? They're not putting their assets at risk for you to figure it out. And so if you can't demonstrate that I've done this, done this, done this, why are they going to put millions of dollars at risk? And I don't understand why that's foreign, other than we have educators who are telling people that they can do it so that they can take their money. And even for the people who've gone through a lot of these 5-figure programs, I get the call saying, Jerome, I still haven't got my first deal. It's been a year. I want to try your method.
Right. Talk about well, before we get into that, so I do understand that a lot of times, hey, we're gonna get started. We're gonna start off small. Do you also think it's a good idea if you do want to work, do something big, to find someone that's already doing it and some way work with them, even if it's free, work with them on a project so they can learn as well? Would that be beneficial?
Some people try to do that, but I think I love Brandon Turner and I think Scott Trench say the same thing. Like, you're creating work for me by saying you want to come work and learn from me, right? If you don't bring knowledge with you, what value are you actually adding? If you're not bringing knowledge or deals, what value adding to me, somebody who already has a business that's operating? And I think people are just really trying to get around paying for somebody to give them a curated content so that they can get to a place where they can speak very confidently about the things that they know and don't know, can evaluate what a deal looks like and doesn't look like. And so, one thing people enjoy is, because this is one of the most taxing things, is somebody who can go find deals. right? If you can go find deals, you become extremely valuable to the experienced partner because they don't have to spend time looking for it. And they don't have to tell you, oh, that's not a deal, because you actually understand how to underwrite, right? So the first two are on you every single time. That's what you need to learn how to do the first two and know how to do them well. Then you spend time networking and demonstrating that you can actually do the stuff. And that will get you linked up with experienced partners. But there's a ton of people who've created masterminds or just online communities where, it's an ecosystem where people can connect and you can forge those relationships. And, those experienced partners lead to the capital partners, of course. But, those first two, and really the first one is really on you, the knowledge piece. And it's not, so I did what a lot of people try to do, except I did it aggressively. So I still today listen to 40 hours of educational content related to multifamily and mindset, right? And a lot of people want to listen to a podcast a day and they're good. But what happened for me is I'd be listening to Michael Blank, Jake and Gino, Rod Khalif, Joe Fairless, John Kasman, Will Smith. I was listening to all these different people talking multifamily, Ruben Greff, and I was confused because everybody had
they all have different philosophies. Yeah, I agree.
running a different game. They've all got a different game plan. And it's like, okay. And I actually had a deal too, right? So I was operating my own deal because I'm an asset manager on every property that we own. And it's just like, but this doesn't match with this. And he said, do that. And I was confused and frustrated. And then the other piece of that is you're overly confident. You think you know everything. You got all the answers figured out. And then you get hit in the face and you're like, wait, what about this? Where was that in the manual? Where was that in the video? Because I didn't see that coming. And so what I've resigned to, or what I've resolved to, is you got to pick one person and go deep, right? And that be your basis. Use their curated content, go end to end, and that's the basis for you understanding multifamily. And then from there, you can add on the stuff to supplement if there's gaps. For instance, like there's some great books on money raising out there. Some people that's all they do is raise capital. So you get the baseline, you understand the rules, and then you dive deep on them, right? And go to the subject matter experts. But you need a general list to take you end to end, so you have a frame, and then you stack the other stuff on that. And all of this is stacking, right? Whether it's a deal, whether it's education, you're stacking stuff on, but you got to have a very solid foundation. And those four things, again, the order really matters, right? The knowledge is the foundation. Then you looking at deals and getting the deal flow up so that you can actually present deals to other people. Those two things make you extremely valuable in the marketplace because most people aren't willing to do those two.
Sounds good. So do you have any other information that you want to add about raising capital at all, so you can contribute to that?
No, for people who are getting started and they want to raise money, just make sure that you're doing it in the right order.
Okay.
Problem.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge is a problem. And then you need to be in these different communities so that you can get connected with people with experience, and that experience will bring the capital. But I mean, I can't emphasize this enough. Like if your personal finances aren't in order, this is not what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go back and do, like, this is graduate level. You need to go back to community college, get your personal finances together, get strong fiscally, and then work your way back to this. It's not get rich quick, but it's get rich for sure. There's people who have doubled, tripled, quadrupled their money. If you buy the deal right, the environment stays conducive to you growing the net operating income and you being able to exit aggressively. But I can't emphasize that enough. This is not wholesaling houses. And a lot of people have tried to reduce it to that. This is investing. This is not marketing.
Right. Did you have to start a fund at all when you were getting money together for your projects?
No, so I guess it's probably prudent to go through this, right? So With joint ventures, everybody brings money to the deal. They're active in the actual operations. With syndications, you've got a two-tier structure where you have the active people, they're called general partners, and then you have limited partners who just contribute capital as if they were in a REIT or buying a stock. And so they're just along for the ride. Within the syndication structure, there are two ways that people do that. They raise by the deal, or they raise in a blind pool fund. There's
Right.
a lot of people who are going down the blind pool fund route because they think there's going to be some distressed assets that they can pick up at a discount, and their ability to pick those up will be increased by the fact that they have dry powder or cash. But they don't know what that opportunity looks like, so they just want people to put their money in the fund and they'll deploy it over the next 2 years. You can do that, but you end up having pressure to deploy the capital if the opportunity doesn't present itself. And because you're paying interest on that money, or you're paying a dividend on that money because you have it in your account and not in the account of other people. I do not recommend that for a person who doesn't have experience, because what'll happen is you'll get antsy and you'll deploy the capital into an asset and you won't be able to preserve it because you bought something wrong. There's something called catching a falling knife, right? Instead of trying to grab the knife, you just let it hit the floor. It's not going to hurt the floor that much, but it will cut your hand open. And so if you don't actually have experience operating a multifamily deal, and then you go buy something in cash, there's a reason why it wasn't bankable, first of all, right? And so because it wasn't bankable, the risk of that business failing is pretty high. And so what you want to do, from my perspective, is you want the bank to be the biggest partner in the deal. Yes, you have the risk capital in, but the property's never really going to go to zero. So you'll always have something, you'll be able to sell it as something. It's just a matter of if it's in your part of the tranche or in the bank's part. If I go back to the syndication side where you raise by the deal, well, you identify the property, but now you've got a clock. And so you've got to have those relationships ready to deploy the capital. And so there are people who build lists of people who are interested in investing with them. The big question mark is always going to be, like, are you sure that you can execute the business plan? And the people who write the larger checks, the people who are writing 6-figure checks versus the people writing 5-figure checks, are always asking, where have you done this before? That's how they got wealthy. They were able to do things that were predictable. And so, those folks are really particular about track record and experience. And if you aren't able to create that and present that to them, you're not going to be able to get them to write a check. And I think the last thing I will say is there's a whole lot of people who say they got money to invest, and when it comes time to write the check, they don't send the check, right? And so whatever you think that you're going to need to raise, you need to raise 2 to 3 times as much as that, because some of those checks aren't going to show up. And usually when it's time to fund, the money that you have at risk, you're not going to get back if you don't close. And when the deals get big enough and your personal financial situation won't allow you to close the gap, that's when you got to make sure that you have a solid pipeline. But I don't encourage anybody to go learn with somebody else's money, especially.
Hey, I'm in the position that you just described, where I've got quite a few deals under my belt. And recently I've come into access to quite a few new investors who say they want to invest in me. And the ideas that you were just talking about ran to my mind in terms of, okay, I've got this list of potential investors built up. When I send out the call, are they really going to respond? So the kind of what I'm thinking about doing is making sure that I can do the deal on my own, but still ask them. And if the money comes, great. If it doesn't, then fine. Because I have the resources, I have the money to do it. But I want to take advantage of and leverage the people who say they want to invest with me. I've probably got close to 20 people that have already said, just let me know. So
Yeah, I mean, let me know is very different from I'm ready to write a check. And, it's casual conversation and people say it glib and they like to flex, right? It's, yeah, I got money, man. Don't worry about it. I'm going to send you that check. But when you start having these very transparent conversations, how much do you actually have to invest? How much of that are you willing to invest in an apartment deal with me and lock up for 3 to 10 years, depending on what your business plan is? If they can't tell you a specific number, then your degree of certainty drops dramatically. And as far as your deals are concerned, you need certainty that you can close, right? So you need to know exactly what you need to close. And hopefully you're overfunding your deal so that you have some additional options. And in that, you need that gap so that you can come back in case somebody doesn't show up that you expect to show up later. Just because you closed on a property doesn't mean that your fundraising is right. So make sure you've got enough money available to close the deal. And then on the backside of that, if you need more gap, you can get that done. And then you actually close the fundraising for the deal.
All right, that's good question, good information. Any more questions out there? Anything else you want to add, Jerome?
No, just grateful to share.
Okay, good. Yeah, we hopefully I can do this every week, just to educate people out there about multifamily, raising capital, how to get started. And I think the biggest thing that you talked about, if you have your own money, you can get started anytime you want to. Just make sure that you're willing to risk your own money and to to lose your own money in the process. And I think that's a good point. And raising capital is good too. But if you have to be willing to take that risk, especially in the beginning. And I know that a lot of our people in my group have already gotten started in investing. So I think that they should be have some good information today on how to continue raising capital and using their own funds to do what they need to do. So
Can Jerome also emphasize the 4 things he said again? It was knowledge, deal flow. The other 2.
But let me hammer on Adanna's point real quick, right? So I don't want you in this business if you don't think investors' money is more precious than your own.
Right. Absolutely.
Hey, losing other people's money, then the people who are actually out here operating and working their butt off have a harder time raising money to do great deals because you're a jerk, right? I don't want you in the business. No reason. And I think this is a big part of why we struggle in our community to go raise money, right? We feel like we can't trust each other with the money because there was a bad experience that happened along the way. There's a guy that I know who gave away $10 million and he's uncomfortable investing in real estate because he did 2 bad business deals with people that he trusted before and they didn't do anything to make him whole. Gave away $10 million and he won't invest $100,000 in a deal. Like,
right.
You make it harder for everybody else by being selfish and taking advantage of people. And I don't want you in the business. And if I can do something to keep you out of business, I will, because there's people out here who want to make a living doing this, improve the community and make money for people and actually create wealth for them. And those are the people that should be out here doing it, not people who are just trying to get something for nothing. As far as Shelton just asked about the 4 steps, again, it's knowledge, deal flow, experience, and capital.
Experience and capital.
That order.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you. Will, you have anything else?
You're on mute. You're on mute, Will.
Yeah, I'm unmuted now. So just, can you expound on deal flow in terms of, like a pipeline or something? Like, what would you do? Because that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I've got experience in capital, but I want to be able to explore different deals. I mean, it's like more networking, or expound on that for me.
Yeah, I mean, so deal flow is really leads, right? So you want to start All right, so the way we teach it is you want to get leads coming in. Think about the funnel, right? You got leads coming into your funnel. Most of them aren't actually something that you should buy, right? So you got to filter them out by applying your education against those leads through underwriting and evaluation of the market to make sure that you got something you want to buy. What goes in to create leads? You got the stuff online like LoopNet and CityFeet, Crexy, the networking by being active in online communities as well as your local RIAs. You've got, going to conferences, and you got wholesalers as another source because there are people who are wholesaling some of these deals. And so those 4 different ventures or 4 different avenues are, I think, some of the best ways to get deal or leads into the pipeline. And then you filter those out using your knowledge to get to.
So you said wholesalers, RIAs, your local RIAs. You said LoopNet.
Yeah, LoopNet and Crexy, CityFeet are all like the commercial MLS options.
Yeah, they have a lot of apartment commercial buildings, LoopNet and Crexy. And I know Will's not necessarily commercial, but it still may be beneficial.
Yeah, my business model is basically build and sell monies returned in 12 months or less in order to build additional capital. Then I'm going to buy multifamily homes to buy and hold as part of my strategy.
Be careful with new construction right now. When the government money runs out, it's going to be messy.
In terms of the rates, or like how so?
People qualifying for mortgages to buy the properties that you're building. Foreclosures are going to spike because all the people that have, the forgiveness or forbearance, some of those are going to turn into foreclosures. So people are going to turn into renters. So depending on the equilibrium of supply and demand in your market, you may end up with oversupply, which means that there won't be any absorption of the new product that's constructed, usually because the new product costs more than the old product. And so if you've got stuff in pipeline, finish it and wait and see what happens after the election.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I think this was a very, very beneficial meeting. We need to have this again, actually.
Yeah, it's good.
And our model is a little different. I'm more single family homes right now that we have a couple out there that we own outright, and then moving more to duplexes and fourplexes. And again, kind of like you were saying, working your way up to that higher unit amount. So right now we have duplexes, we have single families. We're looking at fourplexes right now, and then at some point we want to actually move into that 50 unit level or that 100 unit level. So that's kind of our model on how we're approaching it.
Yeah, I mean, just so I didn't spend a bunch of time here, but for what it's worth, like, you don't get credit for playing in the single family space when it comes to multifamily or commercial loans. So I'm telling people, go buy a 10 or a 20 unit, something that's $1 million or less. Do that with a bank, with somebody who's an experienced partner, and then go do a 30 unit, as Adanna was saying, and just kind of double the portfolio each year. But you don't, because you've already done single family, anything less than a quad, you can get a residential loan on, right? So you don't get any new experience for that. You want to be playing in the commercial loan space. So you want to be 5 or better. You really want to be 5 or better and stretch for what you can. You can have the collective balance sheet equal out whatever the loan needs to be. And then you just got to usually have 10% liquidity post-close. And so, if you can put together a partnership that figures that out and potentially some experience, you can win pretty big.
So before you get off, are you saying should I leverage those single families I have, or are you saying you're looking at like getting rid of them and saying, hey, move further up, instead get out of the single family game, go more into the 4 to 5 unit level, or how are you saying doing that? Because they could be used potentially, right, as part of my my equity to say, hey, look, these are all the things I have available, right?
No, so they're going to ask you for a schedule of real estate owned, but think about the obligation. More than likely, I don't know your financial situation, but most people have debt on the homes that they have, whether it's a rental or their personal residence. And so the equity that's trapped in there, whatever that is more valuable in cash so that you can apply it against a down payment or use it for liquidity post-close than having it stuck in the house, right? Equity in a home doesn't do you any good because you have to sell the home in order to harvest the equity. So sell, if you know that that's not your long-term end state, harvest the equity, because whatever cash flow you're getting, it's going to take you 10 years in order to get that money in equity, right? If you're making $150 a month on your single family rental and it takes you 100 months to get $10,000 or whatever the math is, sell it now. Now you got the 10,000 and you have that equity available, down payment or post-close liquidity. That's the game. But if you're not going to run a single family rental business, there's no reason to have single family rentals.
Okay. Shelton, got anything else to say?
No, this
Okay.
is good.
Okay.
We need to have another conversation again, maybe, in the future, to go over this
Right.
a little bit more. Definitely.
Yeah,
Yes.
I found it to be very informative. Is it okay if I touch base with you every now and again to bounce some ideas off of you?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on what you want to do. Like, I mean, we have a formal coaching program. If people want one-on-one coaching to make that breakthrough, we've got a 11-week course if people just want to get the curated content. And so it just depends on what you need. But I mean, we're here to help, and a lot of stuff you don't need me for because it's already packaged and ready for you to go. For the stuff where I am needed, I'm happy to help. I want to change the face of wealth.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. And we're going to sign off. Thanks again, Jerome.
You, Adanna. Talk soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.